All right, so my name's AJ O'Neill. I think most of you have gotten that by this point because I've been up here like 3 times this year because you are not presenting. And where you create a vacuum, I fill the void. So your punishment is your reward.
You know when you teach, you ask a question, no one responds. You just have to be comfortable with silence.
Yeah.
I'd like to not be comfortable with the meetup ceasing to exist. So please lay the guilt trip on us thick as you can.
Yeah. So we would love to hear more presentations from people who aren't me, but I don't mind giving them. In fact, I like it. So anyway, and I added to my personal title, technophobic technologist. I think it's very fitting. I hate technology. I think it's going to kill us all, and I'm doing what I can to prevent it. But like Mother Teresa said, it's just one drop in the bucket. But hey, it's my drop. So what I'm going to be presenting on today is, so most of you know I'm working on a home server. That's like my life vision and goal is that people should be empowered to have their data in their homes and be in control of stuff if they want to be. And so our first actual product that we're going to be selling and whatnot is called Telebit. It could potentially get a different name, but that's what it's called right now, and I think it's all right. And the reason we have it is because friends don't let friends localhost, because friends are peers, and there's no peers at localhost. And I'm intent on building the peer-to-peer web, and so we need tools for that. We need bridges to help us get from where we are on these, because like right now, the problem is like you're on this isolated island where you're on lonely 127.0.0.1, or you're on like someone else's walled garden platform and there's no space for you to have like your own data and connectivity and actually participate in the web. And this is just kind of a bridge to get us there. So I said a lot of stuff, but I didn't say what is Telebit. I know what it is, I promise. I just don't know how to explain it. So I'll explain some other stuff instead. Oh yeah, this was just something cool. This slide probably shouldn't be here. But this is the problem we solved for. The Internet of Things, Internet of not your things, not your things. Very apropos tweet. And I'm actually going to skip the demo. I'm going to come back around to the demo. And I'm going to talk about what's wrong with localhost. This is probably the wrong order to do it. Sometimes it's way cooler to introduce the solution, then talk about the problem. But I'm actually going to talk about the problem a little bit more first. So there's a number of problems with localhost aside from that it's very lonely. I think that's the biggest problem. One is the browser security context. So if you are doing any sort of front-end development, which I imagine everybody in this room has probably done some front-end development at some time. Is that accurate? Yeah? Okay, at least 1, 2, 8 people. Excellent. So have any of you ever run into the problem where you're developing something and it works, and you deploy it in production and it doesn't work?
Never. Has anyone not run into that problem?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, whoever hasn't run into that problem has probably never pushed to production, and we're grateful. But one of the problems is the browser security context. This is a very simple one, but it's one that people bang their heads against for quite some time before they realize it. On localhost, regardless of the port number you use, now this may have been fixed in more recent versions of Chrome, where fixed is an arbitrary adjustment to the pseudo standard or de facto way things work. But traditionally, localhost does not have separate cookies or separate local storage or separate service workers or separate anything for localhost. So when you go to test, you might, especially if you work for multiple clients, if you test one thing on localhost and then test another thing on localhost it breaks. And you're like, why? And it's because something was set in either a cookie or in local storage or whatever, where you thought something was happening that didn't actually happen. Another problem in the security context is simply a matter of your URL, so your image source. If you are not careful about the way that you construct your image tags and other things to be, well, it's weird because there's things like the file. So there's localhost, and then there's file : / and then there's HTTP : / and then there's HTTPS : / And the browser actually gives you slightly different APIs and permissions for each one. So for example, you cannot use the crypto APIs on HTTP : / I think many browsers make an exception for localhost. But if you take something that was developed with crypto APIs, either in a file where you were testing it by loading it from file : / or you were testing it loading from localhost, and then you try to publish it, it may not work because HTTPS has a different security context than HTTP does, and the APIs don't always operate the same way. Or you get, like, instead of getting your nice green lock, you get a warning sign, and when you click on it, you find it's because, like, somewhere you did image source equals something, and it was constructed in such a way that it didn't load properly with HTTPS, but it worked in testing. So this is one of the things that I hate about localhost. Another one is OAuth. Like, one of the reasons that we still use passwords, I'm convinced, is that passwords work on localhost. Passwords are a dumb idea. If you are implementing passwords on your site, you are one of the most ignorant people in the site implementing world. Unfortunately, you're also one of like the 90% of ignorant population, because passwords are like an invitation to say, like, I don't care about security. I'm just going to have shared passwords with everything where any site can get hacked, and then my site gets hacked too. Yes! I hate users! That's kind of what passwords are saying. But if you want to use a better solution, then it requires like email verification, or it requires OAuth, or it requires push notifications, or, you know, like you see some of the more secure apps, like I actually give props to Slack because they don't do passwords. I give props to Medium because they don't do passwords. Slack does do passwords, but they're trying to transition you away from them like anybody should. But Medium doesn't use passwords. They give you verification links in email, and there are some that will also give you a push notification on your phone, and then, like, Twitter does this. Twitter will send a push notification on your phone saying, hey, a Chrome browser logged in on a MacBook as you, do you want to allow? And if you have Twitter set up in your security settings, then you get this push. Has anybody seen that on Twitter?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that is great, because that is that's device-based security, and I think device-based security is far superior to biometric security, but I think the combination of the two is a super awesome win. Two-factor, two-factor from the true technical sense of any two factors, yes, is important. A lot of what two-factor has come to mean with those little random codes, I'm not seeing good adoption of that outside of technical people and people that are security conscious. I tried doing that and kind of pushing that on users, and it was kind of like they got confused.
I have this extra device I'm carrying around, and that's kind of, it's been known in the industry for a long time that the little code classes, and even I have the YubiKey where I can just press a button. Those are great, simplify them, make it as simple as possible, but your average person's just not going to carry them around.
Yeah, and with the YubiKey Fido or whatever they're called, the other problem with that is, like, you put your jeans through the wash and then your USB key doesn't work anymore. Or like the ones that I've been able to buy on Amazon, they're pretty cheap, so they'll last you like maybe a year, but then they break and then you don't have that anymore. So I've stopped using them for that reason.
I feel like Steam does it perfectly.
Oh, how does Steam do it?
You log on, you have it Steam app on your phone, you feel the buzz, you look at the notification, it gives you a key. It's that easy.
So that's awesome. I think that's a great user experience. And in order for us to build more user experiences like that, we can't build them on localhost. So this is really stifling us as developers to create better things. So with these other types of solutions, there needs to be a pingback URL, and localhost only pings itself. There's nowhere else to go. It's so lonely. So that's a problem. And then, of course, everybody here, I think, has experienced this problem. You're trying to test on mobile. You have to publish somewhere to test on mobile because mobile cannot access localhost, and you cannot develop on mobile So there's no way for you to develop on mobile to access a local host on mobile. So I think that localhost is kind of like this crutch that we like to rely on, but it doesn't serve us well. In fact, it hinders our ability to think around solutions to problems. It puts us in a little box, and it makes us want to use anti-patterns that are insecure, annoying, and boring, and lonely. Very, very lonely. So along with all that, my number one reason, because I'm talking about security stuff, because sometimes we talk about security stuff, it's really awesome because people want to listen to you. It's kind of like when you come out with some framework and you can prove, like mathematically, it operates in 7 fewer clock cycles than the next framework, and then overnight, like people move in droves to the other framework. And I think security is a good topic like that, because if you can put something in phrase, with like security or human rights, then people don't care. They just want to move to it regardless of whether it makes sense or not. But my real reason that I don't like localhost is because I can't share with my mom, because my mom is not really a computer sciencey person, and I actually want to share things with her sometimes. And like I want her to experience what it is that I'm doing so that she can feel proud of me, like every mother wants to feel proud of her son, and so that I can feel like my mother's proud of me, like every son wants to feel like their mother is proud of them. And I can't do that from localhost, and so I can tell my mom about how cool the thing I'm working on is, but she just kind of has to give that sympathetic, like, I'm proud of you, son, as opposed to the like, oh, I'm proud of you, this is good, So that's my number one reason. And then I talked about this earlier, we're just not going to build a better web. We're not going to experience any more innovation in isolated silos and centralized services, right? When Facebook has reached 7 billion users, there's no more innovation to be done. There's no place else for it to go. It has captured the entire market. It crumbles under its own weight. It's just too big of an organization. You can't have real technological innovation when you're at these super huge mega scales. So these centralized services, these centralized clouds, they're not going to really dramatically improve in user experience or in usability, because the way that they've established their business and their technological architecture is just such that it is what it is. So I believe firmly that the next wave of innovation that we're going to see in computer science and technology is going to be breaking away from isolated silos like localhost and centralized services like Azure, and to build a peerweb. And like I said before, like it's just takes away the walls. Okay, so now I need to show you the demo. And if I'm lucky, we're going to see, because I might be able to hit refresh on this page, and it might go from like the page that I created to the page that we're actually supposed to have live. Let's see if I get lucky. No, I didn't get lucky. That's okay. I'm going to show you the page that we're supposed to have live anyway. And where did it go? Where did it go? Won't you be my neighbor? Nope. Okay, I'm just going to send a message on Skype real quick. There we go. So I'm not going to be able to show you the new site, but it looks a lot better than this. So I created this. This is the extent of my my CSS ability, more or less. Like I can copy other people and get slightly better, but I just don't do CSS. It just doesn't make any sense to me, and I try to avoid it like the plague. So I created this as kind of like had some words on it that explained a concept. We actually have another site that was supposed to be live about an hour ago because I was given this presentation, and it looks nice. And actually, let me see if I can find the link to it. He linked me to it. Let me roll back. That was yesterday. Nope, that was today. Nope, that was yesterday. Come on, it was right here. Yes! Okay, if his laptop is still on, he closed his laptop. Oh well. You're going to see the coolest demo ever. All right, I'm gonna take a quick second. I'm gonna text John and I'm gonna tell him to turn his laptop back on so I can see the site. Because this is the cool thing of he's developing on localhost, but I can see it too now, and this is great.
Unless it turns off.
I feel like this is part of your presentation.
So it seems so smooth and so subtle, just like me. But no, this is actually not on purpose. But it's a good demonstration.
If you can get all the John to turn on his laptop.
Yeah. Yeah, so, but here's what I'm going to do. Even though this site is ugly, because if the site were pretty, you would trust it implicitly. But because the site's ugly, I have to tell you, just trust me instead. Okay, trust me. Just trust me. Okay, so go to telebit.cloud real quick. And what this is going to do, you're going to be able to have a folder on your computer that's going to have files in it, and you're going to be able to share it with somebody else. If this all goes well and the demo gods are with us, which, oh, heaven forbid that they aren't. But I promised that it worked an hour ago before I started speaking. Unfortunately, that sometimes doesn't mean anything. Okay, so I've got too many windows open, and I apologize. I should have been more presentation prepared. But go to telebit.cloud, and there's a thing you can copy and paste that will install Telebit on your computer. And what this is going to give you is a little program that you can run /telebit, and then something like HTTP, and then something like 3000. And what you will have is a web address that is world accessible, that will... that didn't look right. Dang it. I bet everything's broken. It's always broken. It is Node, yeah. So you can also npm install it. I just haven't tested the npm installer in a while because I meant it to be really super friendly and easy to use even for non-Node people. It does not require a Mac. It doesn't work on Windows yet, but it should work on Linux just fine. However,
There's a link to manual installations
that may or may not be the correct instructions. Things have changed a little bit, and I haven't got all the documentation up to date. But here's what I want to show you is if I do actually let me create an example folder. I'll call this mkdir shared and then demo, and then I'm going to go into shared and demo and create a little foo.txt and then obligatory bar inside of the foo.txt, and then I'm going to do this. I'm going to do, first of all, the output of this needs to be cleaned up a little bit. What have we got? All right, sweet, I'll take it. I bet something's wrong. I bet everything's broken. Hold on. I've been testing on this, and I don't think that I cleaned up from my test before I came up here. So I'm going to do my old one that I know works. And I'm going to do, just pay no attention to the man behind the curtain for a second, okay? Just none. No attention to him. Okay, and then what was that folder I created? It was shared, demo. Okay. No! 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 Demo gods. Demo gods are angry. We need a blood sacrifice.
I'm sorry, I left my stone knife at home.
Oh, so frustrating.
So it depends on what you're trying to sacrifice.
Okay, we're gonna see if this works the way that it ought to. So now, basically, so what I get is I get a random, we're gonna do custom domains in the not too far off future. All right, sweet, it worked. So that I gotta go check something, and I probably, whatever it is probably something stupid that'll start working within 5 minutes, because you know how it is. But so basically what happens is if you install this, if you actually install this, and if it installs for you, then you're going to get an email, and then that email, it's going to have you click a link, and you're going to have a verification code on your screen. You're going to type it in, and it's going to say, congratulations, and it's going to give you some random domain. Like mine is nervousbird63.telebit.fun. So you're going to get some random domain, and then that domain is now yours. You get to do with it what you will, and you can configure it with multiple subdomains. You can configure it to listen on a particular port on your computer. You can configure it to listen to a folder. You'll also get a random port number that you can use for TCP. And so then when you go to develop something, you can preview it on a phone. You can share it with your mom or a friend. You can do OAuth and actually have Facebook credentials or Google or Twitter credentials that actually work so that you can do good auth instead of password auth. So yeah, and there's my bar is there. So what I want to do is have somebody in the audience go to nervousbird63.telebit.fun, which I'll try to make that bigger because you can't see it. So let me just go. This is one of my favorite things to do on the whole internet. This is the one thing I still use GitHub for, is that it's really easy. Like, I know that there's a text box there that will be big enough to type in. So if you go to this location, that is this laptop. And if I unplug it, that goes away. And I can... That's, yeah, if you try to go to HTTP, it'll say, bad boy, turn yo around. Yeah.
So, I mean, how about just doing the bar?
Yeah, so look at that foo.text. By the way, I tried using the npm install of telebit and then running telebit, and there's some problem to see all.
So I believe that, like I said, I haven't tested the npm installer in a while. It did work a couple versions ago, but did anybody try the bash installer?
Yeah.
Because it should work without. There's no sudo necessary. It should just install.
Yeah, I don't think it works.
Yeah. Did you open the email and go through the? And so, do you have a domain?
Yeah.
Do you mind setting your domain to either a port number or a folder on your computer so that someone can see that it worked for someone other than me and that the demo gods have smiled upon us?
Yeah, I'm trying to post my name there. So I forgot how do you set once you get the domain name to it? Oh, I think it's.
Yeah, so, and that will be right on the new website as soon as John publishes it. No! He can't pull out his laptop right now. Blah, 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 blah. But we have a cool new website, and it looks trustworthy instead of like this junk that I created. Yeah. So there was a number of technical challenges that I overcame with this that I'd love to talk about, but I don't want to bore you with it, especially, do we have another talk after this?
Nope.
Okay, well then I can bore you with it if you want me to. But first of all, comments on this, questions, whatever. Yes?
Did you know specifically, isn't this kind of a bit of a security risk? Like if you don't like perfect security the first time, you're exposing this to the world. So like if you have to do a database, anybody else can get access to that now?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. Like, I would think of it more as a convenience tool rather than, like, so for me, first of all, no one's going to know what your domain is, right? Second of all, I would imagine that you're probably not, like, it's more important to be able to do OAuth than it is to worry that, like, some rando is going to be, like, in the moment that I'm developing, going to be, like, attacking me.
I'm just imagining if this gets big enough, somebody could like run a script to go through like what's open, or maybe not.
Well, no, I mean that you could, like the domains. There's only 1 million domains possible, and then there's like 5 different subdomains. There's .fun, .xyz, .cloud, .io, .website, .site. You know, so you could go through the list of 10 million. That's a relatively small list. But I mean, like you have to have some sort of incentivization or whatever.
Like Bitcoin miners who go through GitHub looking for anybody who tries to take down AWS authentication, and start mining for Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It happens.
My favorite one is where they have that on web browser so that you use your phone
Yeah.
or your laptop or your browser.
Nice.
So it's cool. But they've been trying that a long time.
So wait, doing mining in the browser?
Yeah, so they have
That's actually absolutely a worthless endeavor. I thought about that like 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, before Bitcoin was a thing.
I mean, if you get several million people, you get
So like they use OpenGL miners.
Yeah.
Oh, you can use OpenGL. Okay, I wasn't thinking about that.
There's CPU graphics. Or
Your thing works. I got my site up on it.
Yes! Cool. Do you mind telling us what your...
Yeah, I'll post it in the. Here, I'll select you on Node.js.
All right. Or you could just read it out loud because it actually was meant to be spoken out loud. That's why it's stuff that's easy to read rather than... Because like my goal with this, share with my mom, there's other sites that will do this and they'll give you like a random hash looking thing, but it's a little bit more obnoxious. I selected only words that third graders would be able to do. Let's see.
So it's
Nope.
3000.all-donkey-43.telebit.xyz.
Okay, 3000. So you're on port 3000.
Yep, all-donkey-43.telebit.xyz.
Sweet.
I think this is like the page isn't really going to work very well because it's like in progress and building for a plugin, but you can see a website.
Hey, that's what matters. So cool. Yeah, so what I'm actually building this for, like one current cool use case is the whole like developer use case. What I'm actually building this for is that there's a lot of people that are in network environments, college dorms, 10,000 feet in the air on a plane, whatever, where there's like corporate firewalls or like packet inspection firewalls, or like there's like advanced stuff. Not only is it not easy to like automatically configure the router and get a port open, it's actually I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. But it's actually like there might be cases where you're actively trying to be prevented from having an outside connection. And so with the home server stuff that I'm building, I want the home server to work no matter where you are. Like you should be able to plug it in any home, in any college dorm, in any business, and regardless of what the network settings are, that thing should go up and start working, and within just a couple of minutes of taking it out of the box and plugging it in, you should have a domain, you should have a place where now your stuff can be safe and you can access data and services and devices. And so that's what I'm actually building this for. So there's some other services out there that are focused like solely on the localhost development type of problem. But this is totally, Telebit, I'm building it to be the Swiss Army knife of peer-to-peer networking, not just to be something for localhost. So we're going to have apps that you can install in Telebit. So you'll be able to do like Telebit install some fun game. And I hope at some point in the near future we actually have like a 2-player game where you could take your URL, share it with someone else, and you have a private connection between you and that person, and you're playing a game like over WebSockets or something. And then in the future, like going forward, because this is something you install on your computer, we'll actually make it so that it can configure your router and do port forwarding and stuff like that, so that like it'll go from it works in the worst case scenario, but then progressively enhance to getting more peer-to-peer as we develop it further and are able to include things like stun and RTC and all of that type of stuff.
So when people start using this, like, become the next TikTok?
Well, we don't store any data and we can't see the data. So unencrypted data will actually become a paid feature. We won't do unencrypted data for free. So we don't, like all of the SSL certificates are generated on your computer. So you may have noticed the first time you loaded your site, it took like 5 to 10 seconds, seemed like it took a long time. That was actually generating RSA keys, doing a handshake with Let's Encrypt and Acme. And I presented a little bit ago on Greenlock in Node.js, if any of you were here for that presentation. So this is built with Greenlock baked in. So all of the encryption stuff is happening on your computer and then on the other computer. We're just providing a pathway, and our goal is to eliminate ourselves as the pathway by providing more and more peer solutions. But basically, I want people to have the ability to make the moral choice for themselves, what they feel is appropriate or not appropriate. We already have plenty of restrictions and DRM and all sorts of nasty in place for people to be, that way when they want to. And to me, it really bugs me, the idea that I would maybe purchase a movie and they would have some sort of, I don't buy any movies online other than I buy on Amazon on physical discs, because I don't like the idea that somebody could revoke at any time my right to watch a movie that I, quote, purchased, or music that I, quote, purchased. That's so there's a balance there. In terms of specifically, illegal pirating, I don't know that this aids people in any particular way that they couldn't already do something. But even if it did, I think that in order to have certain freedoms, people have to be able to do things that are not good. Let's say, for example, a terrorist could use this to have a peer-to-peer encrypted connection between two computers, and unfortunately, that is something that I want to be able to happen by virtue of I want anyone to be able to have a peer-to-peer connection, and terrorists are part of anyone, as much as I may not like their motives or hope that they get caught and that they're in trouble and stuff.
Well, I asked because if this somehow got big enough that too many bad you could threaten I guess.
I don't know. I don't know what. So with this, one other thing that's different about this and other services, we actually make the backend open source. So eventually the backend will install with the client, and if you have a good network connection, then the other devices, because this is built from the peer idea that you're going to, eventually with our home cloud system, we're going to have an app on your phone that connects to your home cloud, as opposed to, we don't want to relay through us when we don't have to. So as this becomes more popular, it will actually become more efficient, because more people will be sharing with people that they explicitly trust, like friends and family members. And since you probably trust your friend or family member more than you trust me, it would make more sense that you would want to use their devices and their network connections for your communication than you would want to use me as a relay. If you have to choose between two relays, you'd prefer to choose a relay that you trust more than a relay that you trust less. So I actually think that if we have the problem of it becoming super popular, that would be amazing, and it will actually become more efficient, not less efficient. And Aaron, you had something, I ignored you for the longest time. Do you still have something to say?
I think you may have just addressed it, because I was concerned about whose bandwidth are you using to serve up this stuff. And what I'm hearing you say is that right now it's pretty much your bandwidth, but as more people come online with a more sophisticated means, you'll start to use your own bandwidth.
Yeah, and we do recognize that not everyone's going to want that model, so we are building this into a paid service right now, and there'll be custom domains and all that. But basically, the less peer it is and the less encrypted it is, the more you're going to be in the paid plan, and the more secure it is and the more peer it is, the less you're going to be in the paid plan. So, I'm kind of hoping that in a way this will provide bootstrap funding that it'll obviate itself. It'll become an unnecessary service, but the money that produced in creating it hopefully will justify its creation to that extent. And I mean, I'd love it to, for whatever people that need that particular service, I'd love it to serve them, long term. I don't want to shut it down at some point, but I want the peer web to succeed. And then, did you have something?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Any other questions? Yeah?
Who do you see as early adopters of this?
One thing, while developing Greenlock, the number one type of person that opens issues is the type of person that's building something like this. So when I've gone on NPM and looked at dependencies for Greenlock, there's actually several proxy type things that people are building. And so I'm hoping to make more contact with the people that are already building on Greenlock to create something like this and say, hey, here's something that I'm creating, and what you need may be open source, or it may be available for you for pay, and check it out. So those are the people that are in the community as it's being developed at this early stage. One place I really, really hope it to go is code camps, because I think that developing on localhost is just frustrating and unrewarding. It's like learning to play the piano, but you're the only person that can hear the notes being played, and you want to share with someone else and be like, listen, I can play Itsy Bitsy Spider, and they're like, I can't hear you, you're in a bubble. So I think I've seen people really experience that problem in code camps, and so I'm hoping that that's a place that it will take off. But all of these are really secondary or tertiary to what we're building it for, which is home servers. Which it would be cool if somebody else's home server company started doing this, but as far as I can tell, no other home server companies are trying to do domains. They're all trying to do DHT stuff and whatnot.
So you're selling physical hardware?
Yeah. So let me open up the site. I should have done that. I mean, we could have had so much screen time with me having my primary marketing material on here. Opportunity missed.
You'll just have to come back and do this presentation again when you can record it with your marketing material on the screen.
Or just keep the audio. I'll just do this. Then keep the audio and just resync the video to here. So this is an idea of what I'm building. So basically a little Raspberry Pi, Apple TV size server, and then a storage component where multiple hard drives could go in. So the server itself is just a 24-hour access point, a command and control center, and then if it has storage on it, that means that in addition to be able to sync, say, your phone to your laptop or your mom's computer at her house, you could also have a backup at your house on reliable storage. So that's kind of the very simple, easy to understand intro is this. I don't find that too many men have this problem, but every mom that I've ever met, except for maybe 2 of them, has this problem. And so this is kind of like the consumer pitch right here. For me, the reason I'm building it is for music. I really hate that stuff like Spotify is okay with Taylor Swift's there one day, whatever. Jay-Z's there one day, whatever. They might be there tomorrow, they might not be there. If I curate a playlist, and I can't explain it because a lot of people aren't really that into music. They just kind of listen to it here and there. But if you have a collection of music, you know what I'm talking about. You don't want your collection to just disappear underneath you. And I've had just terrible experiences with everything. iTunes Match was terrible. iTunes home sharing didn't work right. Spotify is just way off base. I need a home server for my music so that I can have my special editions, my radio edits, my family-friendly versions of the albums, my originals, and that's just how I want to enjoy my music. And then here's some of the other pitches, but I want this to be not a techie solution at all, a click, done. My mom would open the box and within 15 minutes share a photo with me or something. That's the end goal. And so this is a piece of that technology that ultimately, I want this to operate in a complete peer-to-peer fashion, but stepping stones. It's got to be convenient first and easy to use first.
Sorry, 2 more questions.
Yeah, sure.
So one, can I install your software on my own, Node or whatever?
Yeah, so I will have more instructions on how to do the server end on a Raspberry Pi later. If you open up an issue on GitHub, that will help me facilitate the focus on that. But yeah, I totally want I want developers to be able to use the open source tools to go the DIY route. Absolutely.
And then I guess my second question is, it's what? I mean, I don't have a lot of experience on the hardware side, but software on a little, Raspberry Pi or whatever on my network, plug it in. So what sort of things are you looking at to prevent exploits of, so now somebody has control of my router if there's a bug in your software or just whatever.
So it's the same question of like the Xbox or the PlayStation or your laptop, right? I think you're more likely to have somebody in your house, download a Windows virus that takes control over your router than to have a very constrained app environment. Because for me, security is not a matter of trying to do things that are fancy. It's a matter of just simply not doing things that are stupid or old-fashioned, right? Don't have passwords. Use key-based authentication. Don't run services that you don't need. So for me, the most common attacks in Node.js are things like denial of service attacks, where you can cause memory to expand and the garbage collector to act up. There aren't very many attacks. Node is a very safe language from the perspective that whenever you're running an application language as opposed to a hardware language like C or C++, when you're running an application language, your attack vulnerability vector is usually limited to things like poor handling of cookies. And we don't use cookies, we only use token-based authentication. So there's just a ton of stuff that we don't do that makes the system relatively, well, I would say superbly secure. And then a few things that we do that are, maybe unusual. But for the most part, it's normal standard security practices and no hipster security. There's a lot of things people do because it sounds like it's secure, but actually it's either not any more secure or it's really inconvenient. And anytime something's inconvenient, it's less secure than the next available convenient solution. Because when something's inconvenient, then you have the situation where people are writing the password on the whiteboard or sticking it to the monitor, etc. When something is inconvenient, people find a solution, and usually that solution is the insecure solution. So convenience is the number one priority above all else, because when it's convenient to do the right thing, people aren't tempted to do the wrong thing.
Yeah. Well, I think education comes into play this as well. For example, if I run a file server through this on my machine, somebody on my root directory, for example, because I'm an idiot and I don't know Linux, for example, right? Now someone can read my entire drive, basically.
Yeah.
Theoretically, right?
So what we're going to see with this in the future is we're going to create a couple of apps that are telebit apps. One of them is going to be file sharing, and with that there's going to be a login system, and we're also going to follow the permissions of the system in kind of a non-traditional way. Most servers look at things you might block log files. Basically, if the other group doesn't have permission to read a file, we won't let the server read a file for things like that. Because with your SSH keys, if somebody's running as your user, they can read them, because if you run as your user, then you can read whatever the user can read. So the important thing to look at in terms of security with a file structure where it's on a user system like this is not actually whether or not the user can read it, but whether or not the other can read it. And if you ignore other read files, then you get around those problems for the most part. So yeah, I think if anytime you try to say the solution is to educate people, your solution sucks. And I don't mean that in a mean way. It's just that's the way the world works. So it's got to work well by default, and there's some there is some trade-off, and there may need to be some sort of tutorial for the way end user type of person.
For sure. But yeah, I could just immediately see somebody I'm going to create an FTP server on my Linux box and just expose the port and how it works and not think about the security side of it.
And so again, you bring up the perfect example for what I just said, right? An FTP server is the most insecure way that you could possibly transfer a file. No authentication of any real significance. All of the passwords, everything's in the clear. no verification of files. You could be downloading one file and think it's something and get something entirely different, and you don't have a way to verify that what was sent is what was received. Like, absolute worst way. So even if you were to use something like this in the most ignorant way possible, you would still be a step above the security that you might otherwise have. So a person setting up an FTP server is obviously like powerful enough to shoot themselves in the foot, but not knowledgeable enough to know, like, you should never use an FTP server. It is 2018, and we live in a world where there's the internet. So, yeah, and I think that example is kind of also, when you talk about media attention or something, like if somebody invented a shoe that protected your foot from getting blisters except for the big toe, like the what you would hear in the media wouldn't be like, somebody created a shoe that almost perfectly solves blister problems. Like, imagine we're all cavemen and this is the first shoe. What the media would pick up onto is like, you should never wear this shoe because you could get a blister in your big toe. And it's like, well, you already get blisters all over your entire foot, so only getting a blister in your big toe is actually an improvement upon the previous thing. And that's something that has to be fought in marketing, messaging, and stuff like that is kind of cumbersome. Because, I mean, like, if something was completely insecure and you secure it 90% or 95%, then, people latch on like, well, it's not 100%. Well, nothing's 100%, Like, 90% of the web uses passwords, and they have, like, virtually no security at all. Hey, it's time to take the trash out. I don't know if that means I need to get off stage, but... I'll take that as a resounding yes.